Good evening and a very warm welcome to The Breakdown. Tonight we come to you from the Takapuna Rugby Football Club on Auckland's North Shore. Now you may recognise this, Oniwa Domain, the scene of many bloody battles between Auckland and North Harbour. We'll talk about that, but also joining the show, Karl Tu'inukuafe, James Parsons and a man by the name of Sean Fitzpatrick. Yeah, it's a pretty good show.
Kia ora koutou katoa, hello and welcome to the Takapuna Rugby Club. Yes, here on the North Shore of Auckland. They've won 12 North Harbour titles, a couple of Gallagher Shields before Auckland decided they were out on their own. But I tell you what, it's great to be with us, and we've got a couple of Auckland men who've got some stories to tell. Number of All Blacks from this club, 9 in fact, including the likes of Eric Rush and Glenn Osborne and who was the other one? Blair Larson as well. Spent a lot of time on the wing, got confused there for a moment. Anyway, so John Kirwan joins us, Sean Fitzpatrick and Mills Muliaina. And Fitzy, was the last time you were here the infamous game, 1994, that Battle of the Bridge, that NPC final?
It was the Battle of the Bridge, and we won that. It was an amazing time, really, considering the number of people we squashed into this place. Very competitive.
That's one way to describe it.
North Harbour thought they had a real chance of beating us, and they put up a great battle. But ultimately, we came through, but great times. And this club brings back such great memories, a real traditional rugby club. We were here, JK, in 1987 with the All Blacks. We had our training here. Like, what did you say? We did 90 scrums against the Romanians here.
Yeah, Cruz made them do 90 scrums. I was just watching.
Yeah, it did nothing.
But I remember that day out here because Eric Rush had just gone from the forwards to the backs and he punched me. Like after the first movement, I said, Rushy, we're backs now, mate. Like, let them hit each other, let the buffheads hit each other.
It was some sort of contest, though, some sort of contest. We used to train here as well, JK as well, you know, right to the end state, across the road at the Pounamu. This was sort of, this was the base of the All Blacks. And what were you doing, Mills? You were playing for the New Zealand under-19s.
Well, yeah, we stayed at Pounamu under-19s. We trained here for the under-19s as well. That was back in 1999. You guys have might have moved on by
finished.
Yeah. So,
Dumbest thing we ever did too, I reckon, splitting the two club competitions. We need to get back to playing clubs across the greater Auckland region. I understand the two provinces because it makes for two good teams, but bring the clubs back together. Marist used to love playing Takapuna.
And what a great clubhouse this is. Look at this, we've got these great fans over here, great club members. Jerseys around all the walls.
It's classic, right?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Dance floor right in the middle of the pitch.
He's still got it, eh?
He's still
got it, eh?
He thinks he's been forgiven for 1994. He hasn't been forgiven for coming across this bridge. Look, we've got to talk about Super Rugby Aotearoa on the weekend. Some great action coming out of Wellington here at Eden Park. Fitzy, first, before we talk about the games in particular, what's your impression of the competition, given the fact that it's the second year these teams have had to go toe-to-toe?
Yeah, well, I thought last year was outstanding. You know, being based in the UK and watching it from afar, the competition was special, real tribalism, and I thought the players last year, especially because they knew what was going on, where the game was going in terms of what was going on later in the year. They were so committed, and those All Blacks, they only had one thing to focus on, was playing for their franchise. And, you know, and the Aaron Smiths of the world had sensational seasons. And I think this year is a little bit more disrupted. They don't really know where they're going, whether they're going to be playing a third round or whether they're going to be going to Australia. Who knows? So I think it's a little bit disrupted in terms of the players, how committed they are in terms of going forward. But, you know, it's a special competition. I love the tribalism. You know, I loved being at Eden Park yesterday. I loved watching the Chiefs and the Hurricanes on Saturday night. Great rugby.
Let's have a look at then this points table as it stands after 4 rounds, and the defending champions, the Crusaders, they are out on top. They proved yesterday at Eden Park that they are at the moment the form team. The Blues threw everything they could at them. Highlanders had the bye week, and there it is, Mills. The Chiefs have got their win in Super Rugby Aotearoa against the Hurricanes. It took the second 40. We'll talk about them in a moment, but I want to focus more importantly on this Crusaders outfit. And JK and Fitzy, you were part of a great Auckland side, Auckland era. You look at what the Crusaders are doing now. Are there some comparisons between the two teams?
Oh, I think when you look at the eras that we played in, there's probably been some inconsistencies in between, whereas I think the Crusaders have been dominant for the last 20 years, and it's a real credit to them. You know, talking about yesterday, Fitzy, you know, when you play the Crusaders, when we played the Crusaders or Canterbury back then, you knew you had to match them in the front row, in the scrum, in the line-outs, you know, and yesterday when you look at that game, we probably didn't match them in the discipline stakes or the maul stakes, and you can't do that. You've got to be perfect across the field. And in our day, when we were playing, we'd wait for the opposition to make a mistake and then we'd pounce. And we might have a beautiful 10 minutes, but score 3 tries, game over. And that's sort of how the Crusaders remind me of. If you give them an inch, they'll take it.
Yeah, they strangle teams. They're very professional. They have a great set piece, good line out, good scrum. They're great over the ball. And every one of them do their job well. And you think about it, as the game wore on yesterday, you know, a few cracks started to appear in the Blues, and that's just an experience thing and a quality thing also. You look at their 9, 10, 12, how good they were, their decision makers when the going got tough, you know, the Whitelocks of the world, those sort of players just really come to the fore. And as Jake has, I take my hat off to them. They, year in, year out, whether they're playing for the All Blacks or they're playing for the Crusaders or they're playing for their clubs, dare I say, occasionally, they put in 100%, and that's what you need to do. And they've set the standard.
So what do you do, Fitzy? I mean, how do you beat a team like this? So you guys have been in a very dominant team. I go back to 1994. You know, obviously North Harbour thought they could disrupt you in using their fists and getting a little bit sort of niggly. How does the modern day team, you know, do that to the Crusaders when they're just so good and the game's so clean?
Well, as a Blues fan, I think we've turned the corner. And from where we were a few years ago, and they're realising that you have to be totally committed to the cause. I'm not saying that they weren't, but you need to be totally focused on what you're doing. And playing for the Crusaders, you can see that. And I'm really pleased that we have a number of players that have re-signed for the Blues now. They can see that this team is going to win trophies. And yesterday, unfortunately, we got undone. But that's the bar. So we're trying to lift the bar, and we got exposed in certain areas which we need to get better in.
You talk about guys stepping up under pressure, though, and you talk about being in key positions. The likes of Cody Taylor, who's started this season in fantastic form in the position of hooker, and then David Havili comes back from injury, influential. But it's Richie Mo'unga I want to just highlight a couple of plays from the game, because I thought, you know, to me he's a special individual who can influence the outcome. And simply here, he just makes the pass here and he's covering, and the Crusaders make an error. Now, he's the guy covering back, he's the guy getting himself back into position, but actively understanding, you know what, where's the next threat going to come from? And he's on the other side of the park and he's already put the hammer down. And you're thinking this is a try all day, Mills, but then he pulls off that sort of tackle. I mean, the Blues go on to score, but those are moments that are hard to replicate. There are not many players across this competition that can do that sort of thing.
Yeah, that makes legendary players. I mean, you look at, you know, Tu'inukuafe, he broke through and, you know, he sort of got back, he got himself back in position, and Mo'unga was actually going to that ruck before he actually pulled out. So, yeah, they often say, you know, when the big moments come, big time players step up. And there was talk, you know, before the game about how Autere Black was going to play compared to Mo'unga. Every single time Mo'unga gets in a situation like this, he just controls the game. You know, he takes it by the scruff of the neck, and it's little things like that. It's the little wee things like that he does. You know, he busts, you know, to get back to the other side and make big plays.
And I want to show another play from the contest as well, because this was pretty much it on ice at the end. He'd done all his kicking, he'd done it well. The turnover's gone, the Blues are out on their feet, and he finds himself in a position to have to do multiple plays. So here he's in support, doesn't get the ball. It's Caleb Clark he protects the ball from, cleans it out. He goes to deck, and just watch now. 3 phases later, where he pops up, gets off the ground. Okay, now you're thinking to myself, oh, I'm the first 5, I've got to get myself back in position. But his ability to get the timing right, to see what's in front of him, and then through this, Severis, and they score. And to me, at the moment, Fitzy, those are the things that are setting the Crusaders apart when you've got something special.
They set their standards very high. And this man sitting next to me, I can still hear him. We'd be beating teams by 30 points. And he had said before the game very arrogantly, we're going to score 10 tries and I'm going to score 4 tries. Give me the ball, I've only scored 3 tries, you know. But that was the attitude. We were totally ruthless. And that's what the Crusaders did yesterday. They're just hugely ruthless, hugely effective, and they're actually enjoying what they're doing. That's the key thing. They enjoy what they do. They love going to work and they love beating teams.
I think that when you look at Richie there, you know, when Sean said before nailing your roles, that would be part of his role. So we look at it and think, wow, that's extra, but for them, that's what's expected. And I think players in motion, Cody Taylor yesterday tackling, you know, Rico when he made that back, a hooker. So I just think that attitude on nailing your roles and then doing that little bit extra. I mean, he is a player always in motion, Richie. I mean, later on we could have showed the try where, you know. So getting back to the Blues, you want to beat the Crusaders, you've got to do that. You've got to match them individually, but also nail all the other, you know, the set piece and your discipline. 4 tries, real positive for the Blues, but discipline let us down.
So, Mills, for the Blues then, how wary would they be of this week on the back of what was such a huge contest? We know big games can take it out of players. How do you approach the Chiefs this weekend? Because the Chiefs are on a winning streak.
Oh, they are. Well,
it's one, but it's a streak.
They'll be hurting. The Blues will be hurting, no doubt, because, you know, they went into this game, you know, fully focused. They had got a big forward pack, and they wanted to win that dominance in terms of the physicality. So when you flip that over to where the Chiefs are, they're ecstatic and they're happy. So now it's probably a dangerous time for the Chiefs. You know, they go back home. You know, they've won a game, and it was a fantastic win also, but they've got a hurting Blues side that's dominated the Chiefs over these last, 2 or 3 years. So I think, you know, they don't need any motivation. Every time you go down State Highway 1 against these two teams, none of them need motivation to get up because they just want to bout the crap out of each other.
I've got a captain's question for my old skipper here. Would you have taken the shots at goal when they were down in the 22, the Blues Crusaders yesterday doing all those scrums? Would you have taken 3 points and gone back, kept the scoreboard rolling over?
The Crusaders?
No,
or
the Blues.
The Blues.
You didn't have Foxy come and say, give me the ball.
I probably would have, because it wouldn't have been me making the decision, because it would be Foxy. Yeah. Foxy would have already taken the shot at goal before I could decide.
So quite possibly that could have happened back then. Well, it was a great game. We've got plenty to talk about for the rest of the show. I'm looking forward to this, though. Kirsty Stanway is back on the breakdown. She started with us, and she's got her own show on a Thursday night. But Kirsty, great to have you with us, and some questions from the crowd as well.
Thanks so much for having me here, Jeff. Yes, first of all, though, we trip down memory lane. Takapuna Rugby Club, they are synonymous on the North Shore. They've made 9 All Blacks. Look at this guy, James Parsons. He hasn't aged a day, even though that was back in 2014. We'll keep walking down here because there's plenty of black jerseys, as you'll see. Zar Lawrence, New Zealand Sevens, Māori All Blacks as well. Glenn Osborne, some legendary All Blacks. Eric Rush, Graham Dowd. But we know the most important people when it comes to rugby is these guys sitting here in the rugby club. And we're going to get a question from Bart. Bart, how good is it to have these guys here?
Oh, it's fantastic. It's a great club, and it's great to have these legends at our club.
Do you have a question? Do you want to put someone on the spot? Ask them anything you like.
Oh, let's ask Fitzy, since he's come over to the Battle of the Bridge from '94. Fitzy, now you're back all the way over from the UK. How are you finding the New Zealand summers?
Well, we actually do come back every summer, and we've been here a little bit longer this time. We've absolutely loved it. We've had a real blast. I've loved watching all the sport. Obviously, in the UK, we haven't had any crowds at our games, so to go to a game yesterday to watch the America's Cup live was really special, and the summer's been pretty good too. So we've loved being back.
You let him off the hook there. That was an easy one. Do you have anything tougher, maybe about what happened out here at Auckland Domain?
Oh, I was actually here that day, so I know Fitzy scored from a Warren Burton mistake, so let's not go there. But no, it was a pretty violent game, so yeah, Harbour's had a few wins recent times, so let's hope we get a few more come the ITM Cup.
Maybe we can relive that try celebration.
I've got a question.
Sure.
Why were you always outside me on the wing?
Because you said you were going to get 4 tries.
No doubt we'll talk about this, why JK got dropped. Because I was there that day.
You were there that day. You were part of that conversation.
His reason he got dropped was because he wasn't scoring enough tries, because he had a fat winger on his wing scoring all the tries.
Are you naming yourself there? That was Laurie Mains that did that. Look, let's change our attention. Let's turn our way and talk about the Chiefs and the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes got out to a fast start down in Wellington at that point because I'd tipped the Chiefs. We'll get to the tipping competition later on. But I'm thinking to myself, Mills, this game's gone. Look, the Hurricanes were on fire, and then all of a sudden something changed. Was it the fact Damien McKenzie all of a sudden took over the game? We saw it from Richie Mo'unga at Eden Park. How much of a difference did this man make when he got into that playmaker role?
Oh, there's no doubt he did. You know, even this here in the first half when he sort of got in, he was a threat. You know, he gets himself in the line, but he actually attacks the line. But also, number of other factors. Other guys started to step up as well. They started to win the battle of the contact. The reserves that came on, Chase Tiete, he was very significant in terms of what he done on the field and the support. You watch here when he breaks here, he's at the back here, let's not forget. But someone outside him, like Tiete, you know, he makes this as well. He does some nice little bit of footwork here and the ability to keep it alive. Yes, he was, but I think also the forwards started to get parity up front, and then they started to get front football. And when the Chiefs, you know, get that offload game going, you know, they're lethal. And that night there, they were outstanding.
Do you think the Hurricanes just went to sleep?
Well, that's what Jason Holland said.
Yeah, he said that after the game.
They almost got bored.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing about winning games, we're talking about the Crusaders, right? They play for 80 minutes, and I think the reason why we all picked the Hurricanes was the Chiefs have been a little bit up and down. But they actually put 40 minutes together in the second half this time instead of the first half. And they got that roll on. And I think the Hurricanes thought, oh, you know, it was all over. And 1% here, you cannot relax in this competition.
So how does that change the competition then, Fitzy? The fact the Blues getting beaten, now all of a sudden the Chiefs have got to win. The Chiefs take on the Blues this weekend. So all of a sudden you've got the Highlanders and Hurricanes. Like, remembering we've got a final to go for. So everyone's expecting right now, the Crusaders have clearly put themselves out as being the best team, but everyone starts competing that a little bit differently. Does the whole competition take a change now?
I think this weekend's really crucial to see how the Blues can back up after that, the intensity of last week in terms of the build-up they had to that game. Everyone said that that'll be sort of a gauge where the Blues are at. I think it's more important this week to see where the Blues are at. Because they've got a serious team in terms of, especially in the forward pack, they can compete in the forwards. They've got a big forward pack now, and we've got a couple, or one of them, the current front rowers coming on shortly. But yeah, I think this week is a real challenge for the guys to get back up to where they were before the Crusaders game.
And confidence is everything, Goldie Mills. Like the Chiefs have been down on a bit of luck and a bit of confidence, but you can see when front football and when someone like Damien is on his game, he's special, just like Mo'unga is. So that confidence is going to bring them. It's going to be a great game.
But those are tough decisions to make when you have to think about the course of the season. And Caleb Trask just got his opportunity at first 5 mils. He did pretty well defensively in that first half. They just missed a couple of opportunities themselves. So, and on the face of it, do you see Damien McKenzie starting at 10? Is that the future for the Chiefs?
Well, I think when you look at the way they finished off that second half, you'd have to. This is a good headache for Clayton McMillan to have, because now you've got an experienced guy that's come, gone into that playmaker role, and he's run the cutter. You've got someone that's come off the bench and Chase Tiete that's sort of stood up in that department. You keep him there.
I'm saying no, Mills. I'm saying no, because I reckon the beauty of him is starting at fullback, and if you know what defences are like. So they'll be organising for one person, and in the second half, when you change that, I reckon that's the beauty of Damien. He comes in late, and your defence doesn't know how to sort of organise for it. So I prefer that he starts back there and then comes in late, and I reckon that's the best way to use him. And
the situation probably suited a Damien McKenzie. The fact when you're chasing a game on the scoreboard, right, you get yourself in a mindset with the fact I've got to create for everyone around me, where if you're having to control a game because that's a mindset from 10, that might make it different.
The downside of having him back there is, they've been out of form. So when you're waiting for something to happen like that, and he's a player that's wanting to create something out of nothing, and if you have a mistake and you've got a team that's underperforming and no confidence, they're going to make mistakes. So have him there, get some stability in your back line and stability in your front row, because that's a relatively pretty inexperienced sort of, especially the locking department. Get him running the cutter and then get them into the game before he starts opening up. And I think that's what they need right now.
I'm with you as well, JK. I think belief is everything. The fact that you get that monkey off your back, you get that first result, and then you can build from there. And they know how they can play and what they are capable of. After the break, can't wait. We're going to catch up with James Parsons, Karl Tu'inukuafe. But first, one of my favourite parts of the show in 2021, we get to test our trivia knowledge. So, Kirsty, you're going to throw a question at us. We're going to have at the break about 2.5 minutes. Hopefully, we're not going to use our phones, and we're going to give you a best answer afterwards.
Yes, our trivia question for this week is, what is the exact date that Karl Tu'inukuafe made his debut for the All Blacks? No, that's actually not the question. I was just kidding. Your question this week is, what 3 players have played for both the Blues and the Warriors? I'm backing JK to get this one. No Googling, no cheating. Here's some hints before we go into the break.
I'd rather have a go and try and succeed than not have a go and think I could have. If I don't do this, then I think it's going to eat away at me for the rest of my life.
He's Kerwin's chance. Will he score in the front? And he will. close range. You're not going to stop him from there.
Things are going pretty well.
Cowan got it down.
A couple of things I'd like to do a bit better. I'd like to work on the quickness of my feet.
A little in and away, right at the last minute, stretched out. Good try.
Goes to Cowan. Try time again for the Warriors. Cowan looming up on the outside. John Cowan. Great try from John Cowan.
But, no, I enjoyed it. Got the ball a few times and had a run.
Welcome back to the breakdown, where we come to you live from the Takapuna Rugby Club, 12-time winners of the North Harbour Championships and 2 of the Gallagher Shield as well. Impressive work. But we asked you just before the break the trivia question this week: what 3 players have played for both the Warriors and the Blues? I've heard Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, not quite yet, but there are 3 players, and here they are.
Oh, no, we're going to go first. We're going to go first.
You're going to go first,
Because
okay.
we're right. You're going to show us. But we actually had a good discussion over the break, and we all contributed, but I'll let the guys one by one tell you who the 3 are. Mills, first one.
Mark Ellis.
Mark Ellis.
Mark Carter.
Mark Carter. And JK has got the 3rd one, and JK didn't, because he didn't play for the Blues. So he didn't play for both. But JK, who was the 3rd?
Sharky Robinson.
Sharky.
We all knew that. There's no problem. We all knew that.
Did the crowd get that? Did you guys in the crowd get that? At North Harbour? Obviously, there they are. Look at them. Sharky.
Millsy got it late.
Oh, I got it late?
Sharky Robinson. There you go.
Wow.
Yeah. That's a Kiwi juice too, no, it's
And there they are.
Sharky
There you
Robinson.
go.
Blues 97, 98, and the Warriors in 96. Mark Ellis, well, he played for a number of teams. He was all over
Mark
the
Ellis
show.
got the most money.
He's still all
Mark
over
Ellis
the
got
show.
the most money, by the
Exactly,
way.
well
He's
and
got-
truly.
Should put the wages
selling
up there.
orange juice. No, that's what he got his most money doing. That's exactly what he did. But I tell you what, it's testing every single week. We did not bad last week. We were a bit under the pump. But I tell you what, I love it when we get to catch up with the players. And it's great the Blues have offered some time up. Karl Tu'inukuafe and James Parsons as well joining us. Both 2 Takapuna men. Give them a round of applause, please. Welcome, welcome, lads.
Carl, good to see you, mate. JP, always a pleasure.
All right, Karl, let's get the serious stuff out of the way. How did the team react to yesterday? I mean, I know it's tough, and this is a day off, a bit of reflection, but you know, what was the mood like in the changing shed? Because it was such a big game. You waited so long to take on the Crusaders.
Yeah, no, the boys were pretty down. But we pretty much took all the positives out of the game. You know, we did pretty well in the scrums, and backs did pretty well on their strikes coming off the back. So there was a lot of negatives, obviously. Probably got to work on our discipline and stuff. So definitely something to work for next week.
Karl, I mean, I don't know what goes on up there in the dark arts, but running on, I saw all the, you know, competition, all those repeated scrums. When you're running on, you know, you got last 25 or 30 minutes, whatever it is, what are you thinking? What are you going on there to do?
Mostly scrum, but I only got 1 scrum. There was only 1 scrum for us in the last 30 minutes, but yeah, pretty much try and do our job as a front row, and that's try to dominate in the scrum. Yeah.
What I'm really interested about, because I've watched you when you're playing for the All Blacks and training for the All Blacks. Playing yesterday, you're up against your mates who you've scrummaged 100 times against every week while you're on tour. How do you try and get one over them?
Oh man, that's pretty tough. I usually try and get it over the boys at training, but like hopefully at the games, we usually just give a wink to each other and just say, "Oh, we'll see how we go."
All square. Is that the old all square?
All square.
Oh, I had that,
Make me look good.
Yeah. I had that deal with Jonah, and I came out on the better side of that. That was outstanding. Chipper, I want to ask you though, the fact that you're part of our team now at Sky, and you look at this game from the outside. You've had to walk away from it, but when you saw that game yesterday, do you think the gap has closed between these two sides from last season?
Yeah, I genuinely do, in the sense that I felt like we had parity in the key areas and in the set piece. And I know, obviously, the Mauls struggled a little bit. Obviously, Cody's try, and I think they used it effectively late in the game to obviously manipulate for Richie's try as well. But I think, the line out and the scrum, we had parity. And in past years, I think, line out in particular, we maybe struggled against Sam Wylock and co. So to have that parity and that platform to continue off for what we showed against the Highlanders and Hurricanes was something that I was pretty confident about and happy with. And then obviously the breakdown in our game plan, I thought we still saw those sort of shapes and movements. The one thing was the discipline, and by that I mean we scored at 2015, And then obviously from the kickoff, they scored 3 penalties back to back, and every time they entered our 22, they came away with points, whereas unfortunately when we went down to our 22, we didn't always come away with those points, and unfortunately we didn't go back to back with points. A lot of the time we'd score, but we couldn't add pressure on top of pressure and getting those back to back sort of points.
Karl, I want to ask, because I want to touch on what you mentioned before, the fact that you're trying to win over your mate at training. Man, you guys have got All Black material up front. Any one of you guys can start. I mean, when do you get told, you know, there are different roles starting compared to coming on the field. When do you get actually told that you're playing a different role? Because, I mean, suggest that you're from a mental side of you, in terms of preparing, a lot different?
Yeah, especially this year, for All Black props, we all have our own strengths, and probably one of mine would be scrummaging, and then some of the others will be mobility around the field. So depending on who we're playing would depend on how we say who's starting and off the bench.
And when do you get told? Is it a week ahead? I mean, obviously...
It's pretty early in the week, just to prepare ourselves for, like, mentally what we're going to try to do. Yeah.
JP had to retire. How was it yesterday? I know you've been a hell of a competitor, and you're standing on the sideline and looking on. I mean, how was the emotions?
Yeah, look, I suppose I'm not missing it as much as I thought I would, which is surprisingly, but I did have to check myself at one point. I was in the same box as Fitzy, and I was sitting behind the glass at one stage, and we got a call that I didn't think went the right way, and I smacked the glass. I actually forgot I wasn't at home, and I was still watching fairly passionately. So, look, I'm obviously right behind the boys, and I certainly believe in the squad we've got, and I believe that we're building a team that can win trophies, as we've spoken about before, but it is that clinical nature and that 80-minute performance, and it's about bringing that, against the big dogs, I suppose, and the Crusaders have shown that, and I think they made a pretty huge statement with some of their try celebrations yesterday. So,
is that fuel on the fire? Is that fuel on the fire?
I just think it sends
it's fuel on your fire. I mean, I can see that.
You're still saying we. Look at that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm going to ask you then, KT. Do you still see him around? Is he just floating around in the background? Is that JP, or the fact do you miss him? You haven't been? No. Do you miss him?
Oh, a little bit. It's not as noisy as it was when he was around. But
what was he like as a teammate? Because they're the things we want to hear. Because everyone's driven in different ways and has influence, and we know he has had an influence. When you play over 100 games, you're there for a reason, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. As soon as he left, it was like a kind of a big blow. Like the boys kind of need that kick in the butt.
Yeah. We know what you meant.
Yeah, just kind of like a reality check from one of the big boys, and we kind of missed that, but we got guys to come in and hopefully fill his shoes.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt you're stepping up this season, as are a number of your players. Let's go to Kirsty. Let's get a couple of questions for you from the floor. I'm certainly looking forward to this.
Yeah, excuse us while we just squeeze in between all of Karl's silverware. 3 trophies here that he's got to collect. We've got a question, though. What's your question?
JP, what's your favourite memory playing for Takapuna out here?
Oh, good question. There's a few, because I think we won 3 titles on the bounce at one stage. So, but one would have to be John Elric. He dropped in the pocket against North Shore in a semi-final out here late, and snapped a droppy from about 50 out, which was pretty good into the wind. So that would go down as my favourite.
50 into the wind?
Oh yeah, JL. He's a specialist.
He is, absolutely.
Well, it was 25 and wind behind him, but. When you go back with 3 on the trot, you just make that stuff up, don't you?
Would you know how to talk about that in terms of winning trophies or not?
Oh, what, at Marist? Yeah. I think we beat varsity, didn't we?
Oh. Question from the floor. Let's just quickly go away. Let's go back to you.
Shade thrown. Okay, let's see what Rameses got.
Karl, Whiwhihake. Just wanted to, I've obviously read that you almost gave rugby away at one stage, and just want to know how rugby's changed your life and who's been influential in those changes for you.
Yeah, I know. I gave it up for a bit, put on a lot of weight, and losing weight, playing rugby was the easiest way to come back. So I have a lot of family and friends here playing at Takapuna Rugby. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for this club. So it's a huge, a lot of gratitude for this club and what they've done for me. And rugby's definitely helped me a lot in my life and all my family as well. So, I'm pretty grateful for the game.
Well, that's great. Talking about great great clubs. For me, I was really, really lucky the other day to go back to my club, Marist, and talk to Marist All Black number 31. Marist is on the move, my boys, Marist is on the move. And in the colours of red and blue, we're setting out, and what we'll do is win the Gallagher Shield for you, because Marist is on the move. Ha-ha, my old club, here I am. But I'm here for a really special evening. Hoskins Sotutu is our latest All Black, and we're here to celebrate. So I'm going to get up there, I'm going to talk to him, probably talk to his dad, probably talk to his mum. Let's go.
The aspiration has always been that he would be an All Black, but it was always baby steps, you know. Play for your school, play for Marist, play for Auckland, play for the Blues, and then, you know, go from there. So we're big on loyalty and wearing the jersey that comes under the jersey, that comes under the jersey.
We're just lucky that he's had opportunities to push on, and you know, he's got a talent, but talent's nothing without a bit of hard work, and he's had to work hard to get there.
Yeah, really love the skill set, you know, as a modern day back row, being able to chip, chase, dummy, sidestep, put people into space, you know, wouldn't look out of place in the centres, you know, and I think that's what I really love about Hoskins.
I watched him play for the club, you know, 3 years ago, and I looked at his skill set and I said, that guy could play in the midfield. He's got the pass off both hands, he reads the game well, and he can kick a ball. And he seems to see space and understands, you know, he's got the brain for it. So I think, put that all together, he's the package.
And when your brother plays, when he plays for the All Blacks, what sort of emotions are going through, you know, your mind when you see big brother out there?
I'm just so happy for him. I mean, the first game when he did the hug, I was almost crying. So yeah, I'm just so happy for him. Yeah, it's pretty nerve-wracking, like watching him go out onto the field. Super exciting though.
He's pretty relaxed. If you know his father, they're peas in a pod, those two, definitely. When I said to Hoskins, if you move out, take your father. So, yeah, peas in a pod, definitely.
How do you go through those emotions of high-level sport?
Get up and go again. That's what we're yelling at the TV, or, you know, whatever it is. I mean, whether it's our girls playing netball or rugby, it's, you know, give it your all and then get up and keep going.
If I morphed yourself 10 years from now, what would you like for people to say about you?
Powerful, skillful, and a very good player.
And a Marist man.
Described his dad, actually. Exactly those three things. I was lucky enough to play against Waisake on a number of occasions. Auckland were generous enough to put him out on the wing when they had too many riches in the midfield, JK, but special family.
Yeah, special family, and I think the thing that I enjoyed the most was that, you know, Waisake slowed Hoskins up a bit. Came out of school, played under 20s, learned his trade a wee bit. You know, and he said himself, if I had gone straight to seniors, I wouldn't have learned as much. So I think that club rugby is still a big part of our future.
And critical for both of you guys, right? The fact that your journey was through club rugby. You talked about it just before, how Takapuna was critical for you, JP as well, to get to the top, being part of a club. And how critical is it that we find a way to rebuild the connections between the highest level and the amateur game?
Yeah, I think it's massive. I obviously played 70 games of club rugby, and then obviously went through to Maida and then Super and then All Blacks, and similar for Karl. So I think it's massive for guys to have that hope, I suppose, that if you don't come through the schooling system and you're not that schoolboy superstar, that there is still a route. And I think in our position, especially in that type 5 role, that for guys that don't mature and develop, that there is still a way in, and you can still grow. And I think you mentioned, you know, for Hoskins, that growth and that experience around a few older heads in the club rugby system, you can really learn a lot, and you can, I suppose, mature and have that sort of game awareness and game nous at this level that sort of can grow your maturity for when you do step into that big stage.
Yeah, I just think it's hugely positive. I went back to the university club 2 weeks ago with John Drake. He has a scholarship for Auckland University, and to go back there brought back so many great memories for me. And this is so refreshing to hear you guys talking about club rugby, because it is so important to New Zealand. The fabric of New Zealand rugby is the clubs and the grassroots, and we just need to make sure. And that's what is so good, guys. And I really congratulate you on being here tonight and talking so fondly about your club, Karl and JP, because it's important, and it's something we've got as New Zealanders that just makes our game so special.
Well, actually, Fitzy, I was talking to our parish priest, and he wanted to know why you didn't come to Marist. because you went to Sacred Heart, and he said to tell you that you probably won't get to heaven. So,
well, I had
there we go.
a great time anyway. So
You're always recruiting. You are always recruiting, Sir John Kirwan. Okay, Karl, I mean, I'll talk to you about this, the fact that when you get to come back to the club and you see how people react to you, and obviously big, lovable character, you know, but you've gone through your challenges, and, you know, how important is it once you finish your career that you reconnect with the club, and for players to do that, and other players, just another question as well, sort of aware how critical we are of the club game is at?
Sorry, what was that last part?
Critical of where, you know, the game is at right now, the struggles clubs are having, right? Are the players aware of that?
Yeah. It's definitely important for me. You know, even before I finish up rugby, it's important for me that I come back every year, get a game in or two, as much as I can, really, just because, like, the love of the game starts at club rugby, you know, like, you don't go into Super Rugby wearing a black jersey, you don't get there without starting from here, like, really enjoying your rugby, your love for, you know, the game, the club, the people, everything about the game all starts here. So, like, wherever I go, whatever level I'm at, I always want to come back to where I started, give back to the community, and pretty much, you know, I don't know what to say, but yeah.
It's part of your life, right?
Yeah,
it's something we're searching for right now, Mills, across our country in a lot of sports, is the fact that creating that opportunity for kids and everyone to get involved in the game at all levels.
Oh, absolutely. And when you know, I suppose to go on far what Fitzy's just mentioned, you know, these guys expressing that, because you don't often hear that from players, you know, where they've come from. You know, some of them haven't had that sort of progression into professional sport, you know, where they go through club rugby, and, you know, you get the guy that the carpenter or the plumber that sort of set you back on your butt, you know, when you're youngster, and say, mate, I'm still hungover from yesterday, last night. You know, that's you know the hardness that you actually need, right?
The other thing that I think you forget is we could try stuff. I mean, I tried kicking once, Fitz, you remember that? Didn't work out too well, but I tried it. But at club rugby, there's a little less pressure, and you can actually try some of the skills that you're trying to build on, and I think that's also really important for your development.
And JP, they celebrate differently in club level, right? The fact that tomorrow there isn't a recovery session, there may not be a video session, but here they get to talk about it, and like you just said, to embellish maybe on the glory days of what's happening in club footy.
Yeah, absolutely, and there's no sort of sprinting or running up and down the field after the game. It's straight into the sheds and into the amber fluids, not the Powerades. But I think that's the beauty of it, and that's, you know, like, some of my best mates are the guys that I was, you know, looked after me that were 30 odd when I was 19, you know, and it's still my best mates now. So you make those really strong bonds at such a crucial time in your life that sort of mature you at a crossroads when you need that maturing.
And I know you're being genuine, because the fact when we asked you about coming to the club, JP, and for you as well, Karl, that you had no hesitation. So thanks very much. Get a round of applause for our guys, please. Coming in, I know it's your day off, Karl, so thank you so very, very much. Got so much more to talk about. Kirsty, what else have we got going on?
I could listen to you talk for the next day. It's like we need another hour of the show, but we still have more coming up. We talk all things Six Nations. Wales were upset by France over the weekend, and the papers are now calling for Eddie Jones's reign to end with England. So our panel will discuss that. But first, Sky's second best rugby show, Sky Rugby Club, on Thursday nights, 8:30 p.m. You'll want to watch this one.
Welcome back to the Takapuna Rugby Club on the North Shore in Auckland, the Blues area. It's great to be here. It's been great to have a chat. James Parsons, Karl Tu'inukuafe, but I tell you what, looking forward to this next discussion. Fitzy, Six Nations, almost finished. There's one more game after a suspension or a postponement for a French game. On the weekend, though, they started to show once again that they're a real threat. We play them round one, first game of a Rugby World Cup in 2023. This is a special group of players. Is this something we should relish already?
Yeah, I think, you know, the French players have shown they've got a number of young players that have really come through. They're really shining. You know, I think they've probably got the best player in the world at the moment, Dupont at 9, quite outstanding. And the pressure that he creates is just a little gem. And they're big, they're young, and the thing with the French, they're actually fit, which is something they haven't always been. You know, in terms of the Bastros and those sort of players. But in saying that, now the Welsh have turned up also, and this is a very good game of rugby union. And just at the end, they took their eye off the ball, and I can remember watching with 3 minutes to go, the commentators said, if anyone can come back and win this game, it's the French team. And that French team took a while to get going, but they were put under pressure by a really good Welsh team that's coached by a former Takapuna man, Wayne Pivac.
Exactly, and I was going to, let's talk about that. There's the fact that he was under threat last campaign, did not go well, Fitzy, but he's turned that around very, very quickly.
Yeah, so
where's that come from?
He's obviously following on from, someone that was hugely successful in Warren Gatland. And he had success at the Scarlets. They won the Pro 14 in 2017, I think they won the Pro 14 or Pro 12 in those days. So he had good pedigree. But he plays a different style of rugby to Gats, and it's taken him a while to get the players around to the way he's thinking. And they've got some really quality players. They've got a good back line, good attack. Defensively, they're better than what they were in November. But November was about bringing all these young players in. And, the structure there's a lot different too. They've only got 4 teams to pick from, remember, in terms of the 4 regional teams. So they don't have a lot of time together compared to other nations. But they're going to be a threat also. They're only going to get better. And as much as they would love to have won that Grand Slam, and potentially they could still win the competition, they are going to be a much better team for that. And they've got, Alan Wynne-Jones, just what a man-mountain. That man has, equalled Richie's, number of test matches, played for one country. So... yeah.
The bubble's going to open up, right? We're sort of forgetting that. It's been so long that we've played that we haven't gone and noticed the Northern Hemisphere. But Mills, you look at the changes that those 2 teams in particular have made, the fact that we haven't seen South Africa play for so long. Is the gap closing worldwide? And the fact that maybe teams see the All Blacks as maybe being in that point of, are they in a rebuild right now?
Oh, it's just so hard to know until you have... Usually we sort of get a gauge on those autumn internationals, when the All Blacks, Australia and South Africa, head over. I guess what the positive of COVID, what that's brought about is that perhaps just gone in and just focused on their own sort of their own game, their own sort of clubs, making sure they get they're absolutely right, because there is nothing else. So when you focus in like that without thinking too much about what's coming from the Southern Hemisphere, that just brings you all together, and perhaps that might have been they've been a benefactor of that.
One thing we haven't really spoken about, although is the COVID factor. COVID has been just wreaked havoc amongst club rugby up there, and then the international game, no crowds. The difference that has made in terms of the performances of the French at home, the Welsh at home, the English at Twickenham, all those, in terms of the Aviva Stadium, and then up at Murrayfield, that makes in 6 nations, because this is hugely tribal, and the crowds have an influence, and we haven't had crowds.
Kirsty's got a couple of questions from the crowd. We've got a knowledgeable crowd here at Takapuna tonight. What have you got for us, Kirsty?
We do indeed. I've managed to snag a few minutes with the chairman of the club. Rob, thank you so much for joining us. Have you got a question for these guys? And I must remind you, there's some presents or there's some treats for the best questions, so no pressure.
Yeah, I've just got a quick question for JK. I understand that Italy's come wooden spoon 16 or 17 times in 21 years. When's the right time to introduce promotion relegation?
Was that for me? Yeah,
It's for you, JK.
From the guy.
I actually avoided the wooden spoon one year. I actually beat Wales, and Steve Hansen was the coach. Sort of went downhill after that, but anyway. Yeah, look, I think promotion relegation should be right across every tournament. The trouble is with Italy is they get 65 million euros a year. They're part of the contract. But I think Romania and Georgia are doing great work, and there should be promotion relegation. You prove that. Maybe give them the money, half the money for a year, so that it doesn't really affect them. But I also think it should be in the championship with the Pacific Island teams. Promotion relegation keeps everyone honest, and then you've got to share the spoils of the money. So yeah, I definitely think we should have it.
Great question. Now, Rob has managed to stitch his daughter up, Grace. So, Grace, have you got a question?
Yeah, I do for Sean. So England has come second to last in the Six Nations twice under Eddie Jones. So when is it time to leave?
When is it time? He's in year 5, and he's under real pressure. The problem we have now is in terms of the cycles, where coaches get away with losses because they say they're preparing for 2023 now, and they were convincingly beaten by a very, very good Irish team. And you read the papers in Europe, they're calling for his head. But he's also done some really good stuff.
What's changed? What's changed from a Rugby World Cup where they were finalists? The same group of players, right?
No, there's a number of players that have changed. But ultimately, it's hard work. You know, in terms of what Eddie is demanding, he is demanding a lot out of his players. And it's an attritional game. Yeah, you play in the Premiership, it's hard work. Then you go to Eddie, and he is just demanding a lot. And he wants the English team to be like the All Blacks in terms of the way they prepare mentally. It's the most important thing in their lives. Take everything else out of your lives. And players struggle because it's not an easy environment to play rugby.
Mills, I'll ask you this then. If he was to be asked to move on, there'll be plenty of people lining up though, right? I mean, this is Eddie Jones we're talking about here. If you're trying to get a quick fix, if you're a team that's struggling for form, Italy, but he probably wouldn't go there. But we've seen the success he's had in the past. Here's a guy who can significantly change the path of any side he goes to.
Eddie Jones can.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. You know. And he's been in this position before. You know, that's what's so great about the man, you know. But at what stage do you say to the players, you're right, it's a totally different ball game over there. You can't be like the All Blacks and the style that they actually play. So, you know, because of his experience, he's probably got something, you know, right up his sleeve. The problem the issue that he does have is that we're unsure about that next cycle. So he can't go to the board and say, this is it. The only thing you can really go to the board is to be patient with me in terms of, you know, this is where the game's going and we've got to work them hard and do this and do that and hope that they keep it on for another 5 years. Yeah. Well, we do anyway. Hey?
Look, I know Eddie well. He's one of the most intense rugby people you'll ever meet. I think public criticism is that he only has 3 years. He comes in and makes complete change, gets the best out of the players, and then players get a little bit sick of him. But I think there's a couple of things in his favour. I don't think they can afford to get rid of him. They're just $100 million loss. Secondly, I know he'll try and get better. If the leadership group is strong enough and they go to him and say, we're not having enough fun or we need to do things differently, I think he'll have the ability to change. I think they'll keep him and he'll get through the next World Cup.
And they have got quality players. I agree with JK. They cannot afford, the RFU can't afford to get rid of him at the moment. But he has got quality players. I can assure you, they have quality players in England at the moment and they have numbers. They have a huge amount of numbers. I go back to the COVID factor. Yep. That has had a huge effect on rugby in the UK.
And you shouldn't underestimate, too, the performances of Scotland through the course of the competition as well. Been very, very competitive, play really, really good rugby, whether that's the opportunity for them to grow as well. I mean, I think things are getting really interesting in the Northern Hemisphere. I'll tell you where things are getting interesting. The sky tipping competition. I saved it to late in the show. JK was hoping we would miss out, but here it is, and I had a big move, to be fair. I backed the Chiefs down in Wellington. I've managed to push my way up. Kirsty's, she's only just come onto the show. She can't be surely number one. Mills, not too bad. JK, what's going on?
Well, I've started slow, but I'm really aiming at Mills. I think he's the next guy.
He's the next guy.
Yeah, I'm having an absolute shocker. I just can't get it right for some reason.
Let's go overall then. Let's have a look at the overall.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, let's go overall.
Let's go. No. Hold on. We were just tricking with you. Here it is overall. And James Parsons, though, had a horror weekend. A horror weekend.
He's starting to fade.
He's starting to fade. Oh, big moves can be made. Kirsty as well. Look, it's a great competition. You can still get involved. There's plenty of time. And you won't start on zero. You'll start in the middle of the pack where the average selections have gone by. It won't be Sir John Kirwan's. But Fitzy, there should be time for you to come in. All right, we've been giving away plenty tonight. Let's go back to Kirsty. She's going to give away a little prize to the best question.
Yes, I have 1 month of free sport to give away, and because she was stitched up by her dad, I'm giving it to Gray. So there you go, Sky Sport Now Pass for you. Maybe you can sell it to your dad and make a bit of money, I don't know.
Probably.
Thank you so much, and we'll go back to the panel with their final thoughts.
Some sort of weekend coming up, Super Rugby Aotearoa, and we start in Dunedin. It's the Highlanders. They're in action against the Hurricanes, and then you've got the Blues and Chiefs going on in Hamilton. We've got tickets to give away to both of those games. Make sure you email us at thebreakdown.co.nz. JK, is this where you make your move on the sky tipping competition?
Yeah, well, you'd be hoping so. I think the interesting thing that Fitzy said is it's a really interesting weekend. We know we've got a final, so the Crusaders have set the bar, but now everyone's up and running, and I think that's really important for the competition as a whole. Can't wait for the Blues Chiefs. You know, the Chiefs are going to bounce back and show some confidence. And your Highlanders, I think, the Hurricanes will be really under the pump. So that's going to be an interesting one as well.
Massive game for Aaron Smith down in Dunedin. He goes past Ben Smith as the highest capped Highlander, so they'll be looking for a big performance. Fitzy, they were disappointing against the Highlanders at Eden Park. But they just got outmatched up front, and they'll have to respond to that.
If you don't mind, and the viewers don't mind, I'm actually going to keep my choices quiet because I'm actually going to help JK.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, in his selection.
So you'll be a joint team next week when we come on the show.
Like you did with my wing play, mate.
And for you, Mills, you think about this weekend, and you're a Blues man some weeks, a Chiefs man other weeks. I mean, you've got no choice coming up. I mean,
I've been watching this actually. Are you actually a Blues man or a Chiefs man? You've got to be a Blues man.
Well, I haven't decided this week because it's so hard to pick. I'm unsure. I mean, but very important in terms of the context of the whole competition, because then you've got the Highlanders as well. So if the Chiefs can get up and beat the Blues, it's going to make things very, very interesting in the latter half of the competition.
Going to get interesting very, very quickly. Other thing I want to talk about as well, just quickly, there's the under 85 kg national competition, club competition at New Zealand Rugby. Make sure you get your team in that. You've got a few days left to do that. Mills is probably the only one on this panel that can possibly fill the under 85s?
Mate.
If you worked hard, given your plate?
I've got a bit of muscle here, mate.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Hey.
I think I played for them when I was about 12.
Yeah, well, I tell you, it's a great competition. Clubs, get yourselves involved. It's fantastic. National final. Thanks very much, JK. Thanks very much, Sean Fitzpatrick. As always, if you're not going home, again, come and make sure you stay with us. Mills as well, and all the people here at the Takapuna Rugby Club. Give yourselves a round of applause. We'll see you in 7 days' time. We're going to Cambridge.
Brent Hall. He jabs a little kick through a Gudgeon, claiming the try.
Wide for Rayasi. And Rayasi's over. Damien McKenzie offloading brilliantly to Tier. Oh boy, this is a try and a half. Brad Weber for the Chiefs.
They switch it. Moore trying to